Okay, so this is lecture 27 on design of reinforced concrete structures. The last topic in unit 3 is design of beams for torsion. Okay, so it is the limit state of collapse torsion. Remember in the second unit we talked with the limit state of collapse flexure or bending, right? In the third unit, first part limit state of collapse shear we dealt with. Now limit state of collapse torsion. It is given in class 41 in page number 74. I guess you can see here limit state of collapse torsion, right? By here, if you can read this one, in structure where torsion is required to maintain equilibrium, members shall be designed for torsion in accordance with 41.2, 41.3 and 41.4. Okay, so that is here. However, for such indeterminate structure where torsion can be eliminated by releasing redundant branes, no specific design for torsion is necessary, provided torsional stiffness is neglected in the calculation of internal forces. Adequate control of any torsional cracking is provided by the shear reinforcement as per 40. So we will see one by one what are the codal provisions. Like 41.2 says, section located less than a distance d from the face of the support may be designed for the same torsion as computed at a distance d. So critical section for the torsion is effective depth from the face of the support. Okay, that is the critical section. Now, whenever your beam is subjected to external load, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, beam will be subjected to bending moment and shear force. Suppose if the load is not passing through the shear center, right? So you will also experience torsion in the beam. Now you have bending moment, you have shear force, you have a twisting moment or torsion. How do you design for such a beam? So here, first you would find out equivalence here. So these are the steps that is given. This we will see in a while. So before that we will go here. So structural concrete members are often subjected to torsional moments in addition to bending moment, axial force and shear force. Completely pure torsion is very rare in RC structure. Okay, completely pure torsion only there. There is no bending moment, there is no shear force, there is no axial force. It is very difficult to find such a member in a reinforced concrete structure. Okay. Now, torsion develops in structural member as a result of, suppose if your loading is not symmetrical or if it is not passing through the shear center of the cross section, that is called asymmetrical loading. Member geometry, if the geometry itself is not not symmetrical with respect to the loading plate, then also you will get the torsion in the structure. Or whenever you are whenever you are designing a framed structure, the beam member in the frame structure invariably subjected to torsion always. Okay, so if you are designing a framed structure, the beam and the beams in the frame structure is always subjected to torsion. So in complex structures such as helical stairways, curved beams, for example, in the entrance of our civil department, you have a quarter curved beams, right? Wherein civil engineering is inscribed. That is a curved beam. So whenever you have curved beam, there also you can expect torsion in that element. Now eccentrically loaded box girders, these are all the way a torsion can be developed in the member. That is due to asymmetrical loading. Loading is not symmetrical, or member geometry is also not symmetrical, or you are designing a framed structure, right? Or helical stairways, curved beams, all these things will be experiencing torsion in addition to all other internal forces. Now, unlike shear, which is a two-dimensional problem, torsion is a three-dimensional problem involving both the shear problem of membrane elements and the warping of the cross section. So I will let you know what is this warping and the three-dimensional problem in a while. Now, as the torsional cracks spiral around the beams, see, for example, let us say you take some piece of chalk piece or any other material if you take, or even if you, how do you squeeze your clothes, you will try to twist it. So when you twist it, you will see the spiral all around the surface, right? It is not that only at one place it is going to spiral it is going to spiral on all the surface. So similarly, torsional moment or twisting moment will produce torsional crack spiral around the beams. So it is necessary to provide closed stirrups as well as additional longitudinal reinforcement, especially at the corners of the faces of the beams. Okay, so whenever a beam is subjected to twisting moment, you should provide the closed stirrups. Open stirrups is not allowed. So I will not told you about open stirrups, but open stirrups also available in, but very rarely used. But when a member is subjected to twisting moment or torsion, you should use only closed stirrups, not open stirrups, as well as additional longitudinal reinforcement, especially at the corner spaces of the beams. Okay. Now you see here, this is a cantilever beam fixed at this point, and twisting moment is applied about this longitudinal axis. This is the longitudinal axis. Now your moment is an anti-clockwise moment. This will produce a shear stress here. Now you see this is called warping. See all the spaces warping of the cross section completely because of the twisting moment, how the member behaves. Now this twisting produces, these are all the shear stress in all the faces. Like this is the cross section of the beam. This is the width of the beam. This is the depth of the beam. So shear stress is here, shear stress is here, shear stress is here, shear stress is here. All the faces subjected to shear stress. Okay. That is why it will create this kind of crack. This is a crack pattern in a element subjected to twisting moment or torsion. Okay, everywhere it cracks. So you have to provide a longitudinal reinforcement. You have to design a transverse reinforcement, that is called stirrups. Now these are some of the practical example of where do you come across element subjected to twisting moment or torsion. For example, this is a let us say this is a beam. And this is the sunshade or canopy. Obviously, when you apply a load here, obviously when you apply load here like this, okay, anywhere you apply load here, the beam is the only one which is resisting. This beam is the only one which is resisting the entire slab weight. So this load, because it is not if you see the resultant load of this, let us say this is the resultant load of all the loads that is acting on the slab. Because this resultant load is not passing through the centroid of this beam, naturally this will produce. Remember, this is a cross section. If you see the plan, this is your beam. In a plan, this is your beam, and let us say this is your slab. Okay, this is your slab will be more long. So slab, let us say this is sunset, and this is the beam. One second. This is the beam. Okay, in the plot. Now your longitudinal axis will be somewhere along this line. So because it is this resultant force is creating moment about longitudinal axis, it will produce a twisting moment, a torsion of this particular beam. So this is one example. So beam supporting a sunshade experiences torsion. This beam experiences torsion due to this beam because self weight is there. Even if no other weight is there, self weight alone will be so much. So that weight will be acting at the centroid of the slab. That has to be carried by this beam in twisting moment. Now cantilever beam, this is a cantilever beam, and there is a perpendicular leg also, and that is carrying the load. Now obviously this load will cause at this support it will be bending moment, but for this member it will be a twisting moment. Okay, because it is going to twist this member. For a member BC, it is only this load is going to create only bending moment. For member BC, this is a BC member. This is AB member. BC will experience only bending moment, whereas AB will experience a twisting moment. Okay, this is a cantilever beam carrying eccentric load. This is second example where torsion you can AB experiencing torsional or twisting moment. Now ring beam supported on column. For example, water tank and all. If you see overhead water tank, this is the bottom of the ring beam is the bottom of the water tank, and this beam is supported on several columns like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 columns here. C1, 2, C6. There are 6 columns. Now, because your beam is ring beam, the circular shaped beam, this circular shape is in plan. Okay, the circular shaped beam is only supported here and here. So whenever it is getting loaded, this will experience a twisting moment. So this is another example of torsion. Now, edge beams in framed structure. For example, these beams, all these edge beam, these are all edge beam. These are all edge beam. This is all edge beam. This is also edge beam. This edge beam, because only one side slab is there, other side slab is not there. This slab load will come onto this beam as a twisting moment. It will produce a twisting moment. Okay. So far we have designed only T beam. Okay. Designed L beam, because to design L beam you should know the torsion, because L beam is always subjected to, as I told you earlier, L beam is the end beam, and the end beam will be subjected to this is the load which will be transferred to this particular beam AB. So this beam AB will be subjected to twisting moment due to this part of the load from the slab. Okay, so that is why we have not designed L beam so far, because you should know the torsion concept before designing L beam. So these are the practical example where you will experience torsion. You cannot avoid torsion in actual structure. Okay, so now there are 2 types of torsion. First one is called primary torsion. Another name is called equilibrium torsion. Another name is statically determinate torsion. All are one and the same thing. Primary torsion or equilibrium torsion or statically determinate torsion. So what does this mean? So let me check this example. In primary torsion, torsion is introduced by eccentric load. Torsion is introduced by an eccentric load with respect to the shear center of the cross section. Shear center here, for this beam is supporting this structural element, and this element will have a load here, and that load is eccentric load with respect to the shear center of this beam. So in primary torsion, torsion is developed only because of eccentric load, and equilibrium condition alone is sufficient to determine the twisting moment. So obviously you can, what does this equilibrium torsion means? So let us say this is my resultant load from the canopy or the sunset. Let us say this is PR, resultant load. Okay, which is acting at a distance some x. So you can easily find out what is the twisting moment experienced by this particular beam. You can easily find out that twisting moment will be PR into x, but it will act in opposite direction. It will be opposite. This is a twisting moment using the sum of moment equal to 0. That is called equilibrium condition. Okay, equilibrium condition. So you will have your vertical reaction will be PR total. This is vertical reaction will be PR, and the moment, that moment is called the twisting moment. Okay, because this moment is acting with respect to the longitude, about this longitudinal axis here. This will be the longitudinal axis here, passing through the length of the beam. And this is the twisting moment, and the twisting moment is PR into x. So you don't need any other equation to find out what is a twisting moment. So that is why it is called equilibrium torsion or statically determinate torsion, because using the equilibrium equation alone you can find out the twisting moment. Okay, this twisting moment can be found using the equilibrium equation alone. That is why it is called statically determinate torsion or equilibrium torsion or primary torsion. Similarly, this is another example. Here also you can find out what is the twisting moment it is subjected to. That also you can find out using equilibrium equation. And similarly here also you can find out. If you see, let us say this length is, load is P, and this length is, let us say, L1 or L2. And so obviously the moment at point B will be P into L2. Bending moment at point B is P into L2. And this P into L2 will act as a twisting moment for AB. Okay, PL2 will be the twisting moment for AB. For at B, for the member BC, the bending moment is PL2. Okay. So these are the primary torsion. In a primary torsion or equilibrium torsion, you can find out the twisting moment using the equilibrium equation alone, and the torsion is produced because of the eccentric load. Okay, this primary torsion. Now there is a secondary torsion, or something it is called compatibility torsion or statically indeterminate torsion. Now in this, torsion is induced by the need for the member to undergo an angle of twist to maintain deformation compatibility, and the resulting twisting moment depends upon the torsional stiffness of the member. What it means here is, suppose let us say I have one secondary beam here which is not supported by the column, but it is supported on this beam. Let us say this is AF. Let us say this is 1, 2. Now beam 1, 2 is resting on AF. AF is the primary beam. Primary beam means that is the main beam, because that is going to transfer the load from this beam to this beam, and from this from beam AF it transfers to the column A and F. Now in a secondary torsion, suppose let us say because these are all rigidly connected, the joint are rigidly connected, whatever rotation or deflection that is happening at this joint will be same for this and this. So equilibrium equation alone will not be sufficient to find out what is the twisting moment here. What is the twisting moment here? Equilibrium equation alone is not sufficient. You also have to use this deformation compatibility equation. Okay, the rotation or the deflection at this joint for the member AF and for the member 1, 2 is same at this joint. You will have additional equation. With that only you can find out twisting moment. Using equilibrium equation alone, you cannot find out the torsion in the element. Such a torsion is called secondary torsion. Okay. So now the shear and torsion is given in 41.3 of IS 456-2000 in page number 75 or so. So equivalent shear. First of all, you have to find out. Remember, I am saying shear and torsion. You are going to not design only for torsion. You will design for a shear and torsion and bending moment and torsion. Okay. So first, shear and torsion. Equivalent shear is given by equivalent shear V is equal to factored shear force on the beam, that is a design shear force on the beam, plus 1.6 times T suffix U. This is the twisting moment or torque, twisting moment or torsional moment. TU. T is for twisting moment, U is for factored or design or ultimate twisting moment. B is the width of the beam. Okay, so that's on V is the equivalent shear, VU is the design shear force, TU is torsional moment, B is the width of the beam. So that's what you can see here. Equivalent shear VE shall be calculated from the formula, this one, VU plus 1.6 TU by B, where these are all experienced here. Now once you calculated this one, VE, right? Remember, in a normal beam without torsion, you are only finding VU. But in a shear and torsion, you are finding out equivalent shear, that is VE. Now, next step is to find out nominal shear stress. In the earlier case, we found out tau V, but in this case, we are finding out tau VE because we are using equivalent shear. So, tau VE, nominal shear stress in the beam subjected to bending moment, shear force and the twisting moment, tau VE is equal to this equivalent shear divided by effective cross-sectional area of the beam. Tau VE is equal to VE by BD. Now, if this tau VE, if it is less than the tau C, remember tau C you will find out from table. Tau V is, if its tau V is less than tau C, you will provide minimum shear reinforcement as per class 26.5.1 by 1.6, like ASV divided by BD is equal to 0.85 by ST, something, a formula is there. You can see in this section. If tau V is coming out to be less than the design shear strength of concrete, you have to provide minimum shear reinforcement. If tau V is greater than tau C but less than tau C max, you have to design longitudinal and shear reinforcement as per 41.4. Okay, so I am going to show you this one. So here, Here it is given the equivalent nominal shear stress tau VE in this case shall be calculated as given in 40.1, except for that is what tau V is equal to VE by BD. The value of tau VE shall not exceed the value of tau C max given in table 20. If tau VE is exceeding tau C max, you have to redesign the problem. You should not have tau VE more than tau C max given in table 20, which we discussed earlier also. Now, if the equivalent nominal shear stress tau VE does not exceed tau C given in table 19, minimum shear reinforcement shall be provided. If tau VE exceed tau C given in table, both longitudinal and transfer reinforcement shall be provided in accordance with 41.4. 41.4 is this one, reinforcement in member subjected to torsion. So reinforcement for torsion when required shall consist of longitudinal reinforcement and transverse reinforcement. Now I am going to show you in this one. Same thing I copied here. So in 41.4.2, longitudinal reinforcement, how will you determine longitudinal reinforcement? So longitudinal reinforcement shall be provided to resist an equivalent bending moment ME1. Okay, you have to design the longitudinal reinforcement for the moment equivalent bending moment ME1. Now what is ME1? ME1 is equal to factored bending moment MU plus MT plus MT. What is MT? So MU is the factored bending moment at the cross section. Now MT, there is one formula given, MT is equal to twisting moment multiplied by 1 plus overall depth of the beam divided by width of the beam whole divided by 1.7. So that's what given here. Okay, MU or MT is equal to TE into 1 plus T by B into divided by 1.7, and T is the torsional moment or twisting moment, D is the overall depth, B is the breadth of the beam. So that's what T is the twisting moment, D overall depth, and B is the width of the beam. So instead of designing in the earlier problem, we have designed using only factored bending moment, but when it is subjected to shear force, we will design for bending moment as well as twisting moment using this equivalent bending moment value. Now your code says if the numerical value of MT, that is the twisting of MT is TU into 1 plus D by B divided by 1.7. If MT as defined in earlier exceeds the numerical value of MU, longitudinal reinforcement shall be provided on the flexural compression phase such that beam can also withstand an equivalent moment ME2 given by MT minus MU, and the moment MU2 being taken as the acting in the opposite sense of to the moment MU. What they are saying is if MT is greater than MU, then you have to provide flexural reinforcement in the compression side also, right? And for what moment you will provide? You will provide for this moment MT minus MU. Whatever the excess moment is there, for that moment you have to provide a compression reinforcement. That is one of the requirement for a torsion. Now how to design the stirrups or transverse reinforcement? So here in the code they are saying this is the transverse reinforcement. Transverse reinforcement is also called stirrups. It is also called links. It is also called hoops. Here you can see two-legged closed loops enclosing the corner longitudinal bar shall have an area of cross section ASV given by this one. In case if the print is not so clear, I am writing it here. Two-legged closed hoops enclosing all the corner longitudinal bars shall have an area of ASV. ASV formula is given here. TU into SV divided by B1 into D1 0.87 Fy plus VU into SY 2.5 D1 into 0.87 Fy. TU is the twisting moment. SV is the spacing of the stirrups. ASV is the spacing, area of this vertical stirrups. B1 and D1, I will let you know what is that. Fy is the grade of steel used for this one stirrups, and all other things same. Now here, and also another thing they are saying, but the total transverse reinforcement ASV shall not be less than this. This is a second condition, okay? That second condition is ASV should be greater than or equal to tau V minus tau C B into SV divided by 0.87 Fy. So you will find out SV from here. You will find out SV from here. There are already two SV you will have. Next, what is B1? B1 is the center to center distance between corner bars in the direction of the width. D1 is center to center distance between corner bars in the direction of depth. Tau C is the design shear strength of concrete from table 19. This tau C. And SV is the spacing of stirrups. All other things you already know. Now, code also says in 26.5.1.7 distribution of torsion reinforcement. When a member is designed for torsion, reinforcement shall be provided as below. The transverse reinforcement means stirrups. For torsion shall be rectangular closed stirrups placed perpendicular to the axis of the member. The spacing of the stirrups shall not exceed the least of x1 plus y1 by 4 and 300 mm, where x1 and y1 are respectively the short and long dimensions of the stirrup. So there are 5 values of spacing you will get. One spacing from this equation, one spacing from this equation, 2, and this is the third, x1 is the third spacing, and this is the fourth one, x1 plus y1 by 4 is the fourth one, 300 mm is the fifth one. So when a beam is subjected to twisting moment, you will design a transverse reinforcement or a shear reinforcement using all these 5 criteria, and the final spacing should not exceed all these 5 values. Okay. So I am going to, okay, is there any doubt so far? If you have doubt, you can see this problem that we are going to solve now. When you see the problem, you will get thoroughly understand. There will not be any problem. And if there is any doubt anywhere during solving the problem, you please let me know. I am very eager to clarify for you. Okay. So, okay, we will see the problem. A beam of effective size 300 by 500 mm is subjected to a factored bending moment. See, remember, whenever this kind of question comes, you please, first thing you should note down is whether the given size is normal overall size or effective size, and secondly about the load is whether it is a design load or it is a service load. Now here it is subjected to a factored bending moment of 80 kilonewton meter and a factored twisting moment of 40 kilonewton meter and a shear force of 70 kilonewton at ultimate load. Shear force of 70 kilonewton at ultimate load. Design the beam to resist the above forces. Effective cover to the steel is 50 mm. Use M20 grade of concrete and Fe415 grade steel. Okay. Now let me know. There are 3 loads here, 3 forces. One is bending moment and twisting moment and shear force. Is there any of the load out of the 3 due to service load? Or all of them are due to factored load or design load? Are you all there?
Yes, sir.
I am asking you a question. There are 3 values given: 80 kilonewton meter, 40 kilonewton meter, 70 kilonewton. Are all these values are design values or service load due to service load?
Design load.
Okay, because this is the factored is given, factored value is given here, right? And this is a factored bending moment is given, right? That is why it is a design moment. Here also factored twisting moment is given. Here also shear force at ultimate load. Ultimate load is also service. Ultimate load also design load or limit load. Okay. So 70 kilonewton at ultimate load. So all the given forces are due to design load only. Okay, so you can take the values as it is. Okay, so now we will see step 1, given data. Your width of the beam is 300 mm. Effective depth is given as 500 mm. Factored bending moment mu is equal to 80 kilonewton meter. Please change into Newton millimeters. So 80 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeters. I am writing m suffix u. U stand for factored moment. Similarly, I am writing capital T suffix u. Again, it is a factored twisting moment. 40 kilonewton meters. So 40 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeters. And factored shear force Vu is given as 70 kilonewton. So in general, student make mistake here. They will write 70 into 10 power 6 Newton. It is 10 power 6 only here because it is kilonewton and meter. Shear force is only kilonewton. It is a force quantity. Force quantity will be only in kilonewton or Newton. So accordingly, it is only into 10 cube. Don't write 10 power 6. Many times people make mistake here. Effective cover to the steel is given 50 mm and Fy of this is given. So you can find out overall depth, right? Effective depth is given 500 mm. Effective cover is given 50 mm. Therefore, overall depth is 550 mm. Okay. Now, first thing is you are going to, as I said, whenever beam is subjected to twisting moment, you have to design for equivalent moment and equivalent shear. Now, that is why second step is to find equivalent moment ME1 and ME2. Now from class 41.4.2, which I discussed just now, ME1 is nothing but ME plus MT. MU value is already given to you here as 80 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. That is your MU. And MT is this formula, which is again given in 41.4.2, which is TU is nothing but a twisting moment. D is nothing but the overall depth. B is nothing but a small, width of the beam, and 1.7. Okay. So MU is 80 kilonewton meter, which is given in the problem itself. Now substitute all these things, find out MT and ME1. So if you find out MT is coming out to be, so this should be 10 power 6. It's not 106. It is 10 power 6. There is a mistake here. Actually, I wrote correctly only, but when it transform, it always changes. Okay. So MT is 14 10 power 6. All this thing. We are getting MT 66.67 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeters. Therefore, your ME1 is equal to ME plus MT 80 plus 66.67 into 10 power 6, that is 146.67 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. That is the ME1, equivalent moment ME1. Yes. Now this is value, this is the MT value. MT is 66.67, MU is 80. Since MT is less than MU, no need of providing reinforcement in flexural compression phase. You have to provide flexural compression reinforcement only when if MT is more than MU. If MT is less than MU, you don't have to provide any compression reinforcement. So we are not going to provide any compression reinforcement. Now we are going to design the reinforcement for flexural tension. Now in this problem already the beam effective size is given, right? So you can use, and grade of concrete and grade of steel is given. So you can find out what is the limiting moment of resistance for this beam using this. For Fe415, it is 0.138 FCK BD square. So FCK is 20, B is the width of the beam, small d is the effective size. So MUR limit or a balanced section, limiting moment of resistance or moment of resistance of a balanced section is 207 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeters. Okay, 207 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. Now your moment is only 146.67 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. So you will design this as a singly reinforced beam or a doubly reinforced beam. Your ME equivalent moment is less than the moment of resistance for a balanced section. So it will be designed as a singly reinforced or doubly reinforced. If mu is less than mur, you will design it as a singly reinforced or doubly reinforced.
Singly reinforced.
Yeah, exactly. So since your me1 equivalent moment is less than the moment of a balanced or limiting moment of resistance, you design the beam as a singly reinforced beam. Okay. So this is the we have to design only a singly reinforced beam. Next, you know, I am going to design under reinforced section, right? Me1 is equal to 0.87 Fy AST into D into 1 minus Fy into AST. This formula is given page number 96. Now, this that is a section G1.1B in page number 96. This formula is given. Remember, this design we already done in many design of the beam. So same thing we are doing. Only thing that instead of Me, we are using Me1. That's all. So if you substitute Me1 is 146.67 into 10 power 6.87 Fy AST small d 1 minus Fy AST FCK B into D. You take all this term below on the left side and keep only AST on the right side, and if you do this, your calculation will be very fast. So if you solve this equation, you will get this quadratic equation with respect to AST. You will get two roots, AST1 and AST2. Obviously, as I told you, we will always take smallest value, because if you go for a higher value, it will become over reinforced section, and your section will be sudden brittle failure it will experience, and the cost also will increase enormously, because you are providing almost 7 times the reinforcement than this. So obviously we will not go for AST1, we will go for AST2, and let us say this is A, this value. Remember, this value is 932 or 933. Let us say 933 is the value, that is A. Now you have to do the check for AST minimum. That you already know the formula from this section 26.5.1.1 AA. If you substitute all this thing, AST minimum is coming out to be 308. Let us say this is B. So AST required is greater of A and B. That was 933 and this is 308. So 933 is the amount of reinforcement you should provide. So you should know, I told you, you should know this table by heart. If it is 20 mm, it is 314. If it is 22, it is 380. If it is 25, it is 491. So I can see, just by looking at this, I can say, okay, I can go with the 2 number of 25. 2 number of 25 means 982 I will be providing 982 instead of 933. That is okay. But I can also go with 340. I will be more economical. So if I provide 3 number of 20 mm bars, this is coming out to be 942 millimeter square. So this is more economical. So I am providing 3 numbers of 20 mm diameter bars. So AST provided is 942 millimeter square. Okay. Is there any doubt so far? Anybody having any doubt? Okay. Now that is the longitudinal reinforcement design. We have designed 3 number of 20 mm diameter bars is the longitudinal reinforcement design. Now you have to design the shear reinforcement for shear and torsion. So first one, the fourth step, the first step is to find nominal shear stress tau VE. So tau VE nothing but VE by BD. Now VE is equivalent shear, which is given in the formula. VE is equal to VU plus 1.6 TU by B. Factored shear force is given. Okay, factored shear force is given to you 70 kilonewtons, so 70 into 10 cube newtons. 1.6 TU is 40 kilonewton meters, so 40 into 10 power 6 divided by B is 300. So if you calculate this, you are getting 283.33 into 10 newton. That is the equivalent shear force. Therefore, your nominal shear stress V by BD is 1.888 Newton per millimeter square. This is the nominal shear stress. VE by BD. In earlier case, you had VU by BD. Now, in this case, you will get a VE by BD because you are finding your tau VE, not tau V. So 1.88 Newton per millimeter square. Now, to find the design shear strength of concrete tau c, because we should know whether we should provide minimum reinforcement or we have to design the shear reinforcement. So in order to do that, you have to find the design shear strength of concrete tau c from table 19. Remember, design shear strength will come from table 19. So table 19, you have what is the percentage of tensile steel provided? P is equal to 100 AST by BD. 100 into 942 divided by BD is coming out to 0.628%. And from table 19 for 0.628% and M20 grade of concrete, using linear interpolation, you can find out tau c. If you find out tau c, so this is 0.628. So you have to interpolate between 0.5 and 0.75. So 0.5 it is 0.48. 0.75 it is 0.56. So if you interpolate it, you are getting the design shear strength of concrete is 0.52 Newton per millimeter square, which is the tau VE value, which is 2.079 Newton per millimeter square, which we found in the previous this one. Okay. Oh, 1 second. Tau V is 1.88. Okay, it's not 2.7. That's why I got out. Tau V is 1.88 Newton per millimeter square. So there's something wrong here. Actually, one more 8 is there. It's okay. So tau V is 1.88 Newton per millimeter square. Okay. So since your tau VE, since this tau VE is greater than tau C, you should design the shear reinforcement. But before that, you have to check tau C max from table 20 for M20 grade concrete. Tau C max is 2.8 Newton per millimeter square. Now, if you see this tau VE value is less than tau C max and more than tau C. So as tau VE is more than tau C and less than tau C max, you have to design the shear reinforcement. Okay, there is no change up to this. But now I am going to provide two leg 10 mm diameter vertical stirrups, as we did in the previous problem also. Here also we are doing the same thing, providing two leg 10 mm diameter vertical stirrups. What is the ASV? ASV is 2 into pi by 4 10 square, which is 157 millimeter square. Now you have to find out the spacing. Design of shear reinforcement. This is always assumed diameter and the number of legs are always assumed. The design is only with respect to the spacing of the stirrups. Okay. That is why you find so many specifications for the spacing of the stirrups. Now the next step is to find the spacing of vertical stirrups SV. Remember, spacing is always represented by SV. Now spacing will come from 5 different formulas. First one, this one, ASV, TU, SV plus all this stuff. ASV just now we found out. TU you already know. SV you are going to find out. FY grade of steel you know. What is B1, D1? All this thing we'll see now. What is B1, D1? So let us say this is your beam. This is the stirrups. These are the tensile steel. This may be compression steel or this may be hanger bars, depending upon whether it is a singly reinforced beam. In a singly reinforced beam, you will have only 2 rods in the corner and that diameter will be very less. But if it is a doubly reinforced beam, you can have 2 or more, okay, depending upon the amount of reinforcement required. Now what is this B1? B1 is nothing but, here you see, the center to center distance of, in the width direction, this is the width of the beam. All of you listen carefully. In the width of the beam, this is the width direction. Center to center distance of the corner bar in the width direction, that is called B1. This is called B1. So this is one effective cover. So effective cover is given as 50 mm in this problem. So this is 50 mm from this extreme surface to the center of the corner bar is 50 mm. Similarly, from here to the rightmost end also 50 mm. So your width was given as 300 mm. So minus 50, that one you will get V1. So that's what, and D1 is nothing but the distance between the corner bars in the depth direction. That is called D1. Okay. So if you see, B1 is equal to 300 mm is the total width, minus 50 mm for this effective cover, minus 50 mm is this effective cover. So you will get 200 mm. So width minus 100 will give you B1. Similarly, effective depth is this 550 mm is given. 550 mm. Sorry, I may have made a mistake here, but you work it out correctly, because I think the problem. Sorry, it is correct only because overall depth is how much? Overall depth is 550, right? Overall depth is 550. Effective depth was given as 500 mm, and this is 50 mm. So 550 is the total overall depth. Overall depth minus 50 minus this 50 in the vertical direction. That is D1, 450 mm. Now you know all these values. You find out SV. So I am rewriting the equation like this. I take SV and take in the other side. I take 1 by SV this side. I have rewritten this equation. Now from this, only unknown is SV. Substitute for all this data, and then you find out SV value, right? So if you do that, 1 by SV is equal to 1 by ASV into TU divided by B1 D1 0.87 Fy plus TU divided by 2.5 D1 multiplied by 0.87 Fy. So if I compute this one, my SV is coming in to be 111 mm. This is my first value. Okay, it is merely just the application of the formula already given in the code. You are substituting the respective value. That's all you are doing. Now the code also says your ASV should be greater than or equal to these values. Now that you will find out. ASV is 157, greater than or equal to, tau B is 1.888, tau C is 0.52, B is 300 mm, SV you are going to find out 0.87 Fy. So SV should be less than or equal to the right side value. You take everything on the other side. So SV should be less than or equal to 138 mm. This is your second equation. Okay, this is your second result, second spacing. Now third spacing, it is coming from 26.5.1.7. The spacing should be less than. So here there are x1, y1. So I am going to say what is x1, what is y1. X1 is nothing but the center to center distance of the stirrups. Center to center distance of the stirrups in the width direction is called x1. Remember, B1 is center to center of the bars, main steel bar. That is B1. X1 is center to center distance between the stirrups in the width direction. So obviously B1 you already found out. So B1 plus this half the diameter plus I'll tell you here how to find out B1. X1 is equal to, X1 is nothing but B1. Remember B1 is your B1 is here, from here to here. Okay, this is your B1. How will I find X1? B1 plus the dia of main bar. Here half diameter of main bar is there. Here half diameter of main bar is there. Okay, on both sides half of. Here half diameter. Here half diameter. So it will become one diameter of the bar, main bar, plus half diameter of the stirrups here, half diameter of the stirrups here. So you can find out. So B1 plus one diameter of the main bar plus one diameter of stirrups will become X1. Similarly, same is for D1 also. So this is the third equation. Now Y1, this is Y1 in a vertical, in the depth direction. The center to center distance between the stirrups is called Y1. So Y1 is D1 plus diameter of the main bar plus diameter of the stirrups or link or hoop. So 450 is the D1 value, plus 20 is the main bar, plus 10 is the diameter of the stirrups. So 480 mm. Okay. So your fourth value is this one, x1. Like for example, I will show here. So x1 plus y1 by 4 and 300 mm. So x1 plus y1 is this one, 230 plus 480 by 4 is 177.5. That is your fourth value. Fifth value is direct, that is 300 mm. So we have calculated 5 different spacing, and your final spacing should be less than all these 5 values, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So first value was 111, second value was 138, third value is 230, fourth is 177.5, fifth one is 300 mm. So obviously your final spacing should be less than 111. So provide 2 leg 10 mm diameter vertical stirrups at 100 mm center to center. So this is your final design for stirrups. Now finally we end with reinforcement detailing. So this is 300 mm is the width of the beam, and where you have we have designed 3 number of 20 mm bar as a tensile steel, and the effective depth is 500 mm. And we have provided 2-legged. This is 2-legged 10 mm diameter vertical stirrups at 100 mm center to center. This is only cross section, and this is a longitudinal section. So this is a 3 number of bars, 20 mm bars. This is the hanger bars, and these are the stirrups, 2-legged 10 mm diameter vertical stirrups. The spacing between the adjacent stirrups is 100 mm. Okay, these are the 100 mm. For every 100 mm, you will have one stirrup. Right? Remember, your rod will not be till the end of the beam. There will be effective cover here also. There will be effective cover here also. Okay. So this is the spacing is 100 mm center to center, and these are 3 number of 20 mm diameter spar, and this is a longitudinal section of the beam. Okay. So that's for is the unit 3.